Hello and welcome. This panel discussion is titled Measuring and Making Change in Our Local Food System and is being hosted by the San Juan County Fair and the WSU San Juan County Extension. The event's being recorded and you can find the recording online after the event on the San Juan County Fair YouTube channel. My name is Lerner Limbach and I'll be serving as the moderator for this evening. I'm the general manager of the Orcas Food Co-op, a 20-year resident of Orcas Island, and I've served on the Agricultural Resources Committee of San Juan County for the past 8 years and on a number of different agricultural work groups over that time. I want to start by giving a brief land acknowledgement. We recognize and honor all peoples who have ancestral ties to these lands and waters. We recognize the importance of including Indigenous voices in spaces where they've been excluded or made invisible. We hope that this food system work can offer a next step in building relationships and bringing Indigenous voices into important decision-making conversations as co-managers in the food system. And I'd next like to introduce our presenters. All of our presenters today are part of the food system team, which was formed in the spring of 2020 to assess and address the needs related to how food is produced, processed, distributed, consumed, and disposed in San Juan County. I'm going to introduce each of the presenters at the beginning, and then we'll just go through each presentation, and we're going to try to save about a half an hour for questions at the end. Throughout the presentation, if you come up with questions, you can feel free to type them into the chat as we go, and then we'll go back through and address as many as we can at the end. If I see any burning questions that come up in the chat during the presentations, then if it makes sense, then we can address it during. So I want to acknowledge Kate Mikulak first, who's not one of the presenters, but she is the program coordinator for the WSU San Juan County Extension and is the invisible hand behind the scenes today, doing all the tech work, setting up the event, and really kind of pulling a lot of this together. So thank you, Kate. Kate's also part of the food system team. Next, we have Faith Vandeput. Faith is the Agricultural Resources Committee coordinator for San Juan County. She works with the ARC to advise county council on issues affecting farmers and farmland by listening to the agricultural community and identifying emerging trends and advocating for policy and programs that support our food system. She's also a farmer on Lopez, runs Midnight's Farm with her husband, David Bill. Caitlin Leck is the food system team coordinator. She's working with this stellar group of agricultural advocates on the food system team. She's a mother, farmer, activist, and facilitator who believes nourishing food and regenerative farming can act as mechanisms for social change. Caitlin has helped guide the Orcas Community Participatory Agriculture Program since its inception in 2014, and is also a member of the Orcas Food Co-op Board, Orcas Women's Coalition, and Agricultural Resources Committee. Kristen Razabek is a registered dietitian and certified diabetes educator. She currently coordinates the SNAP-Ed Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program for San Juan County. And as a member of the food system team, she is passionate about ensuring equitable access to nutritious, healthy food for all people to promote their health and well-being. And she's the health and nutrition coordinator with San Juan County Health and Community Services. Steph Coffey is the director of the San Juan Islands Agricultural Guild. And Steph has been the executive director since 2017. She has over 17 years experience in advertising and broadcast production. And in the past 19 years, she has been working for nonprofits, doing fund development, policy development, and program management. She's a former part-time farmer, growing vegetables for restaurants and local farmers markets in Two Harbors, Minnesota, and is a board member of the San Juan County Agricultural Resources Committee and graduate of Leadership San Juan Islands. So those are our speakers. And unless anybody else has anything before we jump in, I'm going to turn it over to Faith. Faith, you are muted.
I'm muted. I think we'd get that down by now. So thank you everyone for coming inside on this gorgeous evening to learn about agriculture and get a little update here. So thank you so much for joining, and hopefully I will stay on. My internet's a little unstable, so if I start sounding like a robot, do let me know, because it just popped me off a second ago. So I'm going to share my screen because I have a bunch of slides for you. So we're going to start there. And we need to go like that. Okay. So the ARC, so I'm the coordinator of the Agricultural Resource Committee, which is a citizen advisory committee, and we advise county council on agricultural policy. And it means that I get to work with this great team of volunteers, and we do have a couple seats available. So if any of you are interested and want to make a difference, contact me. But today I'm going to be talking about the Agricultural Viability Survey and Report. So all of the data I'm going to be sharing is from the Ag Viability Study. So this is something that it's part of the mandatory reporting that the county has to do to Washington State because as a county we're enrolled in the voluntary stewardship program. And this year, the 2020 survey was funded by the Conservation District and the Ag Guild, and they contracted with the WSU's Social and Economic Sciences Research Center. And so that's the entity that did this study that I'll be sharing the data from. So it's the second time that we've done this survey. The first one was in 2017. So this last one was in 2020. And we had 283 contacts, of which most of them were agricultural landowners or operators. And we got 86 respondents back, which was a 38% response rate, which is actually fairly good for this kind of thing. And just a note that there were just over half of the respondents identified as commercial farmers. So just as we go through the information, just kind of keep that in mind. So how and what are our farms selling? So on this graph, the blue is the data from 2017 and the red is the data from 2020. So most producers used 3 or fewer different ways to sell their product. Different market channels is what they call it in survey world. So a quarter of the producers used just one market channel. And so where were our farmers selling their crops in 2020? And keep in mind, this data was collected kind of in the middle of COVID. So it's kind of an interesting time to have this information come forward. So most of the most utilized market channel was direct to customer lists, followed by island restaurants, farm stands, and farmers markets. That's for 2020. And I want to point out just how important the island restaurants are to island farmers and vice versa, that both in 2017 and in 2020, there were 35% or more of the respondents were selling some of their product to restaurants. So a couple changes to note. There is a growth in the island food co-ops. So a pretty big change. So that's a shout out to the work that the Orcas food co-op and the San Juan food co-op have been doing of just really working with local producers. And another place of growth was web-based sales. So, which was not a surprise with COVID. And it'll be interesting to see how that, what happens with that in the coming years. And another thing I want to point out is just the growth potential with the island grocery stores as a market channel for local farms. We actually lost ground there. And so that is a potential. So this next one, again, blue is 2017, red is 2020, and this shows what % of farms are growing what crops. So there was an upsurge in veggie production in 2020, 65% of respondents, followed by fruits and berries. And then as far as market value in 2020, the top 5 in order of value were veggies, fruits and berries, cattle and calves, flowers, and then lamb. So in the past 50 years, the average size of farms in the county has decreased by a factor of 4. San Juan County's agriculture today is characterized by a larger number of smaller farms. So the number of acres farmed has stayed fairly consistent over the last 5 years. Here we see the average is kind of right around 60 acres with roughly half of it owned and half of it leased. But if we drill into the numbers, the smallest farm responding to the survey is less than an acre. And there were 16 farms that were under 5 acres. So on the other side of the spectrum, the 2 largest farms were both over 500 acres with roughly 400 acres of leased land. Those are probably mostly livestock operations, which makes sense. And there were 10 farms that managed between 150 and 300 acres of both leased and owned land. The leased land is used mostly for grazing, 62%, and hay production, 52%. And 2/3 of those who lease land have no formal lease. They have some kind of verbal contract or a handshake. And over half of farm leases, whether they have a formal contract or not, pay no rent. So we have a higher than state and national average of farm and ranch ownership by women in San Juan County, 11% owned by veterans and 2% owned by minorities. And then our age range. So there's a couple stories here. I want to start with the dark blue. So the dark blue is the 35 and younger category. So as you can see, with 2017 on the left and 2020 on the right, we have an uptick from 2% to 9% of people in this under 35 category, which is really exciting. So I see it out in the ag community. We've got some great new young producers in the county, and I was really glad to see this also kind of reflected in the data, because we need these younger people, and it's nice to see it like reflected in the numbers as well. So the other story here is the lighter blue, which is the over 70 category. And then the yellow, which is the 60 to 70-year-olds. And you can see with those 2 categories combined, 50% of our farmers who responded to the survey are over 60, which is an age when some people do think about slowing down. So how long do folks who are farming now want to continue? Almost half of our farmers are planning on farming for over 16 years, which is great because we want that continuity because it takes a long time to learn how to farm well. There's a lot to learn. So there were a couple of respondents who were in the over 70 category, who also were in the planning on farming for more than 20 years category. So I was pretty impressed with that we have some really dedicated people with a lot of knowledge under their belts who want to just keep going, which is pretty cool. So we also have almost 20%, which are looking to farm like 5 years or less. So this question of how long are our farmers planning to continue farming? So farmland is especially vulnerable to development pressures during succession. There is not always a clear heir who wants to farm. And even with the protective mechanisms that we have in our county, such as the agricultural resource land designation, current use farm and ag taxation program, and conservation easements, farmland is extremely vulnerable to development pressures. So the work that the Land Bank and the Lopez Community Land Trust and the San Juan Preservation Trust are doing is with farmland preservation are crucial in the face of the increasing land prices and population growth. And we need to look at additional tools as well, such as conservation easements that include a mandatory agricultural use component, such as were pioneered in like Marin and Sonoma County and on the East Coast. So I continue to ask this question, I think we all should, of how do we hold back the development pressure so that there's farmland available and accessible to the people who have passion for growing food. So we asked people in the survey, how long or do they intend to maintain, increase, or decrease their operation in the next 5 years? So the blue is maintain, the orange is increase or expand, and the gray is decrease, and the yellow is not sure, which in the middle of COVID, you can see that there was an uptick in people who were like, I'm not sure what I want to do, which is totally understandable. But that 38% of people that wanted to increase or expand their operations, we want to support them. And we asked them, how can we support you to do that? And this is what they said. They gave us a bit of a recipe. Over 75% of the respondents say they need grant support, additional labor, and access to reliable markets. So as you'll hear from some of the other panelists today, many of these issues are actually currently being worked on in San Juan County. We're really lucky. So I also want to point out, especially right now in this time of drought and increasing felt effects of climate change, I want to point out the more than 50% of respondents say access to water is one of the things that they need to increase production. Now that nut is a little harder to crack. So this graphic is was asked of all of the respondents whether they wanted to increase, decrease, maintain. This was just a question about the challenges that they face. And it has a lot of different stories to tell about what we need to do to increase agricultural production in San Juan County. So before we dive in, I want to orient you. So we asked the farmers to rate the challenge from if they experienced it as an extreme challenge, the darkest red, to slight challenge, the light pink, to not a challenge, the green, and then does not apply with the blue. And if you remember back that 50% of the respondents didn't consider themselves a commercial farm, I'm really glad that we had that does not apply category. So it gives us some information there too. So looking at this, over 75% of respondents rated cost of on-farm infrastructure as a challenge. So in order to increase production, and increasingly in order to meet some of the new regulatory world that with the Food System and Modernization Act, which is a whole new kind of regulatory framework that that farmers are working in. There are so many different infrastructure needs on a farm, from wash and pack infrastructure for vegetables, to season extension, to fencing, to irrigation, to shelter for animals and storage of crops and feed. So there's a big need there. And as you all know, the cost of, lumber and, a lot of the cost for putting in new infrastructure is continuing to rise. So just like in other sectors of the food system economy, the relationship between available workforce and available housing is felt by farmers. Farm worker housing has the largest amount of reported extreme challenge. See the 25% of dark red there. So I want to make clear that affordable housing supports the whole food system, including farmers. And we need to seriously explore creative solutions such as tiny home communities, which the ARC included in our comp plan housing recommendations. So a new question, we didn't ask this one in 2017, but we put cost of inputs in this 2020 one, and 60% of respondents indicated that cost of inputs was a challenge. And inputs include fertilizers, lime, compost. So transportation is, of course, a big part of this. But there are two important inputs that can be made locally: compost and biochar. And we need to support these both from a do-it-yourself scale all the way up to a community scale biochar and compost production on all three of the main islands. And we need to get our food and biomass out of the waste stream so it can be composted and grow us more food instead of producing methane and adding to the climate crisis. So there's, as you can see, there's a lot of different stories in this, and it's definitely it's worth studying in different ways. So let's see, with that, and if anyone wants any of these slides, I'm happy to share all of them. So you can get a copy of this and look at it in more detail. And I just want to, in closing here, just note that the Ag Viability Survey is a data point in a rapidly changing world. And since we were asking these different questions, the pressures that affect agriculture in the islands have intensified, I think. So there's been this incredible rise in real estate prices and demand for property in our islands, which make the policies and programs that the county enacts to protect farmland from development even more important. And we need to look not only at the preservation of the land, but support of ongoing production and the people who do the work. And the UN's Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change report came out last week, and it stated that events like the heat dome that we all experienced in June are 150% more likely to happen in our region due to climate change. And we know climate change intimately affects farmers, and that farmers are in the position to be part of our mitigation strategy through stewardship of our land, including practices that sequester carbon, and part of our resilience strategy by feeding us in times of abundance and uncertainty. So we must continue to celebrate the agrarian ethic in our community, and our farms maintain an essential part of our rural character. So I want to thank all of you for being here tonight, for your curiosity and your support of agriculture in our islands. And as you're going to see from the other panelists, there's some fantastic work going on in the county to support agriculture and many different ways for us all to engage. So thank you so much. And I think I pass it to Caitlin.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Faith. Well done. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen. Okay, how's that looking? You guys able to see that? Okay, excellent. Okay, so my name is Caitlin Leck and I am the food system team coordinator. And tonight I'm going to be talking to you about our community food assessment and food system plan project. So in this presentation, we'll have a look at the big picture of our project. We'll take a peek into the assessment itself. We'll look ahead to the food system plan, and then we can talk about how you all can get involved. Hang on a sec, there we go, big picture. Okay, so here is a lot of information that's capturing our journey so far. It's a timeline of our project. So the first thing is demonstrating how powerful it is to write down a goal. So in the fall of 2019, at the Ag Resource Committee ARC retreat, we established the goal to secure funding for a local food system plan that lays out specific strategies, timelines, and benchmarks to move our county toward greater local food resilience. So that was the goal. And then in the spring of 2020, we were able to start in on that goal thanks to a private donation. So our team convened and we kind of established the framework of our efforts. We were also part of a lot of pandemic emergency response work. So that was last spring. In the summer, we took a really deep dive into secondary data, existing data sources, and we looked to the Whatcom Community Food Assessment and the USDA Economics of Local Food Systems Toolkit as guides for that section. Last fall, there were many data collection efforts like the Ag Viability Survey that Faith just described, and a lot of other data collection efforts were kind of coming together at the same time, which was really, really timely for us to be able to incorporate that. We were also, oh, and I just want to mention, it's the data collection, it's a collaboration of so many organizations, so many ag orgs in the county. So just a shout out to all the work that's being done on that front. Last fall, we also received a Regional Food System Partnership Grant Subaward. So partnering with NABC and a network of 30 regional entities, we got a subaward that is devoted to food system planning and implementation in San Juan County, and we were able to leverage our private donation to get that additional funding. So that's super exciting for helping these goals become reality. So this past winter and spring and into the summer, we've been focusing on creating sector snapshot drafts, which we'll look into in a little bit here. We'll get that out to the public this fall, and then we'll start in on our food system plan. So here again, our amazing team coming from all different angles in the food system, and just, yeah, quite an amazing collection of humans working on this. And for our mission and our vision, our mission is food is a mechanism for change, and by fostering an equitable, localized food system, we create the conditions for social justice, environmental stewardship, and a thriving economy. And by understanding the many elements in our food system and how they relate, the food system plan will provide a shared framework to guide collaborative decision-making and equitably relocalize our county's food system. Okay, so now looking at our community food assessment. So it's really in two phases. We have an assessment and then we'll have a plan. So the food system, the community food assessment is kind of like a bird's eye view of current conditions. And in our assessment, the general structure is an intro, an extended land acknowledgement, the sector snapshots that are broken down into an overview, list of challenges, collaborations, and gaps in knowledge. And then we'll have solidarity, resources, and themes and conclusions. So that's kind of the big picture of our assessment. looking specifically at the sector snapshots. As Faith described, the challenges are real. And at the same time, we have many pieces in place, and we have just an immense potential to synergize these existing efforts. So it's all super exciting, and it's been fascinating to dive deep into this process. So what I'd like to do for the next couple of minutes is to highlight current collaborations and key developments in the different sectors, and it will give you a sense of what's happening on the ground. So in the land snapshot, there's an amazing program through the Madrona Institute called the Coast Salish Youth Stewardship Corps that serves intertribal Indigenous youth who have ancestral ties to the San Juan Islands. And as we all know, Indigenous people have been the longest running land managers in the islands. And so this program aims to create the next generation of culturally engaged land managers by involving youth directly with the current management agencies. So definitely keep an eye out for their work. Super exciting. Another effort is the CART team, Conservation Ag Resource Team, that was formed in 2019 at the request of the Land Bank to evaluate future scenarios at Caulfield Farm Preserve. And so the findings in the report are setting a precedent for how other publicly owned conservation ag land is managed in San Juan County. Looking at water, as we heard, it's a challenge to have access to water. And we also have very limited data on how much water is being used by ag producers in the county. So we need to be able to understand if we're using water at a sustainable rate. And I put in an inquiry to find out more about this new funding source for a water usage study. But just to note that given this huge gap in knowledge, that funding is a really exciting opportunity to guide our decision making. So in agriculture, there's a lot going on. Another shout out to the ARC's Ag Org Retreat, the Agricultural Organizations Retreat. Lerner and I were trying to count it up, and I think it's about 7 years running. We've had a good stretch. So those are ag orgs coming together to compare notes and try to move forward together. The Farm Fund is a locally managed grant source, so that access to capital at a local scale is super important. And then, yeah, as we noted, this data collection, all these different constellations of ag orgs in the county are collaborating. And I believe it was Faith coined the phrase 2020 being the year of ag data, because it really was incredible how much came together that year. So yeah, we're able to weave these into our report. So looking at the local food survey, ag viability survey, the Makers Guild needs assessment, Lopez Island Food Center feasibility study, and a local food economic impact analysis that I'll mention again in a minute. And also just the work around the Ag Summit was really, really incredible this year. Another collaboration of different organizations investigating the intersection of equity in agriculture. And they offered some really amazing classes that are recorded. So check those out if you didn't get a chance to do that yet. In fishing and aquaculture, there's some really incredible research going on around clam gardens. Marco Hatch, who's a member of the Samish Nation and a Western Washington professor, is researching mariculture, which is an ancient indigenous technology that can also serve as a future adaptation strategy for the climate crisis. So really amazing work there. We are also very lucky to have our state representative, Deborah Lekanoff, fully in support of protecting wild salmon. And at a meeting a couple weeks ago, she described her vision of encouraging the Washington State Parks to purchase Rosario Resort to protect wild salmon and convert the resort into an environmental learning and research center. Economy and labor. So a moment ago, I mentioned this local food economic impact analysis. And this again is coming out of a goal from the ARC in 2019. So through the grant funding that we received, we're able to hire Western Washington University to analyze the impact of increasing local food production. So we're doing it in kind of two ways, looking at turning up the volume, so to speak, like what would it mean to increase local food production by 10%? And additionally, we want to look in a more nuanced way at different sectors. So kind of like adjusting the treble and the bass and like on the mix board, like the more detailed look. So that is in progress and should be coming out pretty soon. But just a really interesting rule of thumb for the economic multiplier. The report is showing that for every $1,000 of increased local food production, $1,428 worth of economic activity in the local economy is generated. And then just a quick mention of under consideration also is a food system housing study. As we saw in that challenges diagram, housing is a limiting factor. So we want to look deeper into that. Okay, so for processing and distribution, the San Juan Islands Food Hub, whose aim is to support the folks who feed us and provide safe access to fresh local food, launched this online marketplace in the midst of the pandemic, and it became a key piece of that pandemic response. And then it has grown and evolved since then. So it's a huge asset in the county to have that. And similarly, another infrastructure piece that's going on is this feasibility study to create a food center on Lopez. And the work that that team is doing, looking at how can different organizations collaborate and potentially share physical space, how can that set the precedent for that similar work on other islands? In consumption, there was the San Juan County Local Food Survey, or the EATER survey, that was a partnership of, again, a constellation of agricultural organizations. And with the goal of having a better understanding of food consumption and buying patterns among San Juan County residents. So that's been woven into our assessment. We're also very, very fortunate to have locally managed food access programs that Kristen will touch on more, but those include Fresh Bucks, Farm to Food Bank, gleaning programs, Good Food Bag, Market Match, and Veggie RX. Under waste, we're really looking to kind of flip the script from this concept of waste to what could be the next highest use of a resource. So along those lines, there are several efforts, and as Faith mentioned, this biochar effort is super encouraging and exciting. It's both a soil amendment and a biofiltration substrate, and there's a lot of research going on with the Conservation District and OSU, small scale DIY versions on people's farms. And there's also a pilot project being considered for a bioenergy facility in East Sound. Okay, so that's a glimpse of our assessment, just a quick description of our plan, keeping in mind that this is a countywide strategy, and we're trying to equitably relocalize the county's food system. So this assessment phase, it's going to be iterative, so we need to get it out into the community while it's still relevant. So it's never going to be perfect, but we're going to revisit it at an interval. And it's a living document. So we're hoping to get that out this fall. And then the food system plan will be countywide, strategic, actionable, synergistic plan. And we'll begin work on that late this fall into the winter. So how can you all get involved? Again, just to plug, community engagement is going to be key to have this be an actionable plan. So please keep an eye out for announcements. I'll put the link for this Google form for a sign up listserv in the chat in a moment here. And then if you would like to contact me directly, there is my email. Okay, and that's it. Here we go. So I'm gonna pass it to, did we say Steph is next? All right.
All right, I'm just loading up my screens. Share. Oops, and open that. Okay, so I'm Steph Coffey, the director of the Ag Guild. And the Ag Guild is, our San Juan Islands Agricultural Guild, is a 501c3 nonprofit that serves all of San Juan County. And it's to foster a vibrant, resilient, and sustainable food system in San Juan County. So as Faith talked about, one of the biggest barriers, and I gotta give something, one of the biggest barriers to farmers, and especially beginning farmers, is access to land. We have started a program called Farmers to Farmland back in 2016 to help meet the goals of beginning and experienced farmers through information and referral to resources, connecting to different agencies and 2 land opportunities. So Peggy Bill is our coordinator, and that's her email address. And then there's more information at the website. If you go to the website, we have online applications. So if you have land available or you want to start farming or expand current operations, you fill out one of these 2 applications, landowner info or new farmer info. And then Peggy gets an automatic email and she'll be in touch. And the program is really open to everyone. I wanted to point out the little story that's on the website. It's about June Farm, one of our participants. June Farm is now renting the former named La Crover Farm on San Juan Island. And Peggy did a lot of work as far as showing different properties. And once they decided on working with La Crover, just going through what types of lease agreements, water rights. They also had brought in the conservation district to take a look at the land to make sure it was in line with their goals. And then they also took advantage of the farm fund and now are selling at the San Juan Islands Food Hub. So it's really a synergistic example of how all these collaborations help reduce barriers and keep farmland in production. All right. This group we work very collaboratively with other agencies to make this happen. And we've all partnered together to apply for a beginning farmer rancher grant, which we did receive. We just got word of it. So that'll be starting in September 2021. And some of the things that will be offered will be technical assistance, such as business planning, marketing, branding assistance, farm plans. We'll be doing education through WSU, peer mentoring, and help navigating markets, really focusing on wholesale markets and making sure that there's food safety certifications are being met. We all will be working together also to create a model to provide access to public and private farmland. So potentially involving shared land, shared infrastructure, and educational opportunities and collaborative. So really an incubator model. And expanding to a target audience to evaluate needs to provide culturally appropriate services to the Latinx community. A lot more info to come since we just got notification, but there's some trainings coming up for cultivating success workshops, which I think Kate will have a little later in the program. So, I'm going to go back. So this program, the USDA grant, focuses on 10 years or less. That's how they define a beginning farmer. So 10 years or less experience. But we want to be able to offer this program to everyone who might be interested. So right now we're doing a fundraising drive through the virtual fair with the San Juan Island Community Foundation. You go to the website between August 18th to the 22nd, and you can donate to the Farmers to Farmland program. And then we get a match from the Community Foundation. Another top barrier that Faith mentioned was access to capital. And the Orcas Food Co-op started the Farm Fund in 2015, providing much needed capital for infrastructure improvements. The program came under the Ag Guild umbrella in 2020 to be able to take advantage of tax deductible donations. So while it's under the Ag Guild, it's really very much a committee program that's run as a collaborative of agencies, farmers, the Orcas Food Co-op, and individuals. And they make the decisions of how it's run. The mechanisms for distribution are grants and loans, microloans. And the criteria for awards depends on the funding source. So there are depends on the funding source. So for example, the Morningstar Farm here received a $25,000 grant which was funded through the Orcas Island Community Foundation. And part of the criteria for that funding was that it also gave back to the food bank. So Morningstar was able to more than double their cultivation area. They also put in a walk-in cooler, were able to put in irrigation, and then also had washing stands for food safety. But they also were able to donate over 6,000 pounds of produce to the food bank last year, a value of over $11,000, a huge impact for the community. On the other end is a microloan. So Wiesel Wellness Farm, also on Orcas, though we had farms across the county receive microloans. Wise Wellness Farm got a 585 microloan, and they were able to give back to both Meals on Wheels and the food bank. But they also, what they really liked is that they were able to make some chef connections with Meals on Wheels, which are still going on today. And she was able to pay for her fencing. So both loans and grants, whether they're small or large, have tremendous impact for the farmers, but they also have an important they provide an important investment for our local healthy food for our communities. So microloans are still available for any San Juan County farmer. The caveat is that you have to donate to a San Juan Island-based food security program, but that includes, the valuation is based on retail value and delivery costs. So hopefully that would help offset that requirement. There's no deadline, it's until the funding runs out. We also are doing fundraising for a 2022 grant round. So we really want to do grants next time. And if you're interested in donating to that effort, you can donate right on the Ag Guild website, which is right there. And you want to put in farm fund for the notes, so it's restricted to that. Or you could send a check to the Ag Guild. So Faith also mentioned connecting people to markets. So Island Grown in the San Juans is a marketing program with the goal to increase sales of locally grown, raised, made, and gathered products. And thanks to a county LTAC grant, we were able to update the website, islandgrownsj.com, to make it easier for buyers to search what products are available. And I also want to point out that the new Island Grown debit card, Kristen's going to talk about that later. I just wanted to point out that's how you access information about it. But if you're going to shop for products, you want to hit on one of those blue buttons, and that will take you to an interactive map called the Washington Food and Farm Finder. So this is a statewide interactive map that's run by Sustainable Connections. And it really helps you drill down to, if you are looking for specific products or you're looking for a specific farm, or you want to see what all things are on Lopez Island, let's say, you could drill down that way and find the farms that you're interested in. So right now, listings are free for 2021. And that's for farms, value-added producers, farmers markets, restaurants that sell value-added products that or sell products that they get from farmers, or they help support farmers. And this is a great opportunity if you want to try it out, because next year it probably will not be free. So if you are interested, you hit the Eat Local First icon, and then on the far right side, there's a sign up, or you could join Island Grown and we can help you do that. So Island Grown is $70 a year, and we help promote you on our website. We also have a Facebook and Instagram for Island Grown. So if you're not following us, please do. But the applications for Island Grown are on the website, and we have 3 categories: farmer, producer, and community supporter. And members receive a reduced commercial kitchen rate at Brickworks, which is $15 an hour. So if you're looking at creating a value-added product, you can rent Brickworks for $15 an hour. All right, so one thing that we also support is the farm tours. And this is just a save the dates, it's coming quick here. San Juan Island starts September 23rd through the 26th. Orcas is October 1st through the 3rd, and October 15th through the 17th is Lopez. We have a new website, farmtourssanjuan.com, and I just tried it before I went online, and it's not there yet. We have somebody working on it, and you want to keep checking back because there's going to be constant updates, and eventually the maps will be put there and you can print them from there as well. So save the date. And then another challenge is the access to markets again. The San Juan Island Food Hub opened its doors in April, really as an answer to COVID challenges. And then this summer, we also launched the wholesale market, kind of a soft launch right now. If you're not familiar with a food hub, think of it as an online farmers market. So once a week, farms and value-added producers from all around the county list their products, and buyers can log in and buy items from any farm on any island. So for retail ordering, that happens Thursdays through Sunday. It closes at 11:30 p.m. And then items are delivered for curbside pickup Tuesdays at Taproot, Tuesdays at Brickworks in San Juan, and Wednesdays at Maple Rock Farm on Orcas. Then wholesale is delivered directly to the customer. And that happens on Tuesdays or Wednesdays, depending on the ferry system, and then also on Fridays. For retail, we accept SNAP, currently only on San Juan Island. We have applied for the other islands, and it's just painfully slow. So hopefully we'll have an answer soon. Producers can also choose to sell retail and or wholesale, so you can do both. You can do both, do one week and maybe a month later do a different one. You can go a week on, week off. It's totally flexible. You can also choose just a Tuesday delivery or a Friday delivery. Or do both. It's up to you as a producer. What's nice about the software is that it tracks inventory across all those markets. So and then also sends out an invoice for you, trying to simplify the process. We received a LFPP grant, a USDA LFPP, which is called Local Food Promotion Program grant, which in order to expand wholesale. So we're working on a walk-in freezer for Taproot, and I've been saying that for a while, but it is happening. We're getting there. Also, we are doing GAP certification for produce farms. So we have funding for 3 farms to receive GAP certification. So if you are at all interested or want more information about GAP certification, please contact me. Like I said, we have the funding to help you get that. We also are doing value-added training, and that is going to start in December 8th and 9th. So save the dates, December 8th and 9th, we'll be doing a value-added food product development workshop. And this workshop is going to be done by WSU. It's really cool where they find out what products you are interested in. Let's say you're interested in baked goods or fermented products, and they cater the program to what kind of product you would like to do. And you can attend both days or one day, totally up to you. The other save the date is March 17th. And that's in order to get critical controls. It's basically the HACCP, but now they call it critical controls. Part 1, it's a 2-part training. So part 1 is at your own pace online, and it's $198, but we have a stipend to help you to offset that cost. And then we also have on the 2nd, March 17th, you have to attend that, but you have to have part 1 done before you can do it. It's in-person training, hopefully, and that's only $25. But a critical piece if you want to do value-added production. There's my contact information. Feel free to ask me questions in Q&A or direct message me. That'd be great. And just a heads up, we also are hiring soon. So if you are looking for like a marketing job, we're doing a marketing job, and then we're also adding a person for the Beginning Farmer Rancher grant. If you would like to receive those notifications, just let me know. Make sure I have your email. Thank you.
So I'm Kristen with San Juan County Health and Community Services, and today I just wanted to share a little bit about some of the different programs we have in terms of improving equitable access to food in San Juan County for all people. So I'm just going to go through and talk about some of the different programs that are currently available. So just to kind of talk about, I work in our SNAP Ed program. That's primarily, well, I work in many different programs in the health department, but primarily what funds my work when it comes to kind of the farm to community and part of the food system is through our SNAP Ed, Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. And so a lot of what I have focused in on that work is how do we promote increased consumption to fruits and vegetables, as well as opportunities for physical activity for low-income populations in our community, and very much looking at how do we connect farms and think about that food equity piece. And I would just say that studies have shown that for every dollar that's spent on economic incentive programs for low-income people, it actually generates $2.80 to support our local food economy. And we also see an increased consumption for fruits and vegetables of 26% in low-income populations. So pretty important to think about in terms of when it comes from a food equity perspective, why do we want to support these types of programs? So the first program I want to talk about is a state-funded market match program. So for clients who are on SNAP, again, Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, also known as Basic Food in Washington or food stamps, They can actually go to the San Juan Island Farmers Market and the Orcas Island Farmers Market. They can go to the market manager stand and run their what's called an EBT card, which has their benefits on them. And if they run up to $40 on their EBT card, they actually will get $40 in matching funds. So they'll get a total of $80 to be able to spend. And that's on fresh fruits and vegetables, mushrooms, herbs, and then any seeds and plants that produce food. So that's our market match program. And then we also have a privately funded Fresh Bucks program that operates on San Juan and Orcas Island. So again, these clients, when they're shopping, they can get some additional dollars. This program was really important for us in terms of private funded because there are a number of clients that are eligible for SNAP, but for a variety of reasons, particularly within our Latinx community, they may not want to apply for public assistance or any public benefits. There can oftentimes be some real concerns about being a public charge. And so we wanted to ensure that our privately funded Fresh Bucks program was available to anyone who income qualified, and they don't have to be enrolled in SNAP. They just need to be income eligible. So what this program does is it actually promotes a $20 match at the farmers market, as well as at the co-ops on Orcas and San Juan, which is really phenomenal, increasing, again, the buying power for our low-income families. And what we've seen is that market match program, the Fresh Bucks program, for every $15,000 that's spent, there's over $30,000 that are going into our local farmers and our growers. And I'll just share some data from 2020. So in San Juan, we had over 130 people enrolled in the program, and they used, in terms of the benefit, about $8,000 of Fresh Bucks between the San Juan Island Co-op and the farmers market. And what that meant is that actually using their SNAP EBT benefits, they actually spent over $25,000 of EBT eligible foods being sold. And on Orcas, there was over 345 individuals from over 200 households. And again, with greater than $20,000 in matching funds, there was over $40,000 in produce being sold. So pretty phenomenal to see that, again, these families, that we're helping them stretch their buying power and helping them afford more fresh fruits and vegetables and locally grown foods. We also have state-funded farmers market nutrition program. So the state provides up to $24 for WIC, women, infants, and children families. So families with children who are income eligible and have children under the age of 5. And then $40 for our senior programs. And then thanks to the generosity of community partners, so we have Seroptimus on San Juan Island, and then One Canoe, which is a nonprofit operated by Heritage Ranch. They're providing additional matching dollars for us to support this program, which is pretty phenomenal. And I have to say, this summer, we have a good food bag, and we have 94 people between our WIC and senior programs on all 3 islands, on Lopez, Orcas, and San Juan, who are getting basically monthly produce deliveries. And we coordinate that through the San Juan Islands Food Hub, and they have been an absolutely phenomenal partner. And they also have helped to fundraise and support that program. So thanks to the generosity of their customers, we've really seen this program that started as a pilot last year expand, and it's been very successful. So kind of exciting to be able to give bags of fresh produce to clients, and they can either come and pick it up at the Food Hub site, or the Senior Center will deliver it as part of some of their Meals on Wheels and home delivered meals program, or oftentimes we can drop it off at the childcare center for some of our younger families. And then One Canoe, like I mentioned, they are, we partner with them, but they're their own separate entity. They do a produce prescription program, or what we oftentimes call Veggie RX. And this is a program that is targeting people with chronic health conditions. They've got some nutrition education and recipe and other education criteria that go into that program. And then they're offering coupons as well as the bulk produce bags for fruits and vegetables. And so they've been a really wonderful partner to work with. And I know that that Marcy is working on hopefully getting a grant to continue to sustain that program. And then we have our brand new, and Steph kind of teased this out in her presentation, but we have our brand new Island Grown Food Access Card program. So thanks to the generosity of local donors. And then with the fiscal sponsorship of our San Juan Islands Ag Guild. We are currently actually in the process of enrolling 150 households, and they will receive, you'll see this little black kind of credit card at the bottom, but they will receive basically this debit credit, this food access card with $150 on it. And they can spend that on a variety of, local farms, farm stands, at the farmer's market, at the food hub. Basically, anyone that accepts debit credit can then accept this card. And they can purchase any EBT eligible food. So that's fruits and vegetables. It can be meat, fish, poultry, eggs, cheeses, bread, and then any seeds and plants that also produce food are eligible. So we're very excited about this brand new program. I think there's some things about this pilot that really I'm hoping to see some success, because it helps to reduce a lot of the administrative burden that we see with invoicing, and for farms and farmers who want to ensure they have a value and an ethic that they're serving people across all incomes in our community, but it also can be very cumbersome sometimes with some of the administrative burden. And then from a stigma perspective, this card is not differentiating. It's not like using your WIC checks or showing your EBT card. This looks like any other debit credit card. So it's really helping reduce the stigma, I think, too, for clients. And I see a lot of potential for this as we think about some of the expansion for some of our privately funded efforts to really help support people who are underserved in our community and make sure they're getting access to healthy and nutritious foods. And then finally, how can you help? I would just encourage, if you are income eligible, and the income eligibility is basically if you're at or below 200% of federal poverty level for an annual income. So that's about $53,000 for a family of 4. I would just encourage you to please enroll in these programs or contact us at the health department. And I listed our phone number there, 360-378-4474. Or you can contact your local resource center. They're going to have information and be able to connect you. If you're interested in donating to support these programs, I would also encourage that there's just some really wonderful opportunities to really help support our local food producers, as well as many of our community members that are in need. So we have the Joyce L. Sobel Family Resource Center, and then Indicate Fresh Bucks in that, as well as the Orcas Community Resource Center. And then obviously the San Juan Islands Agricultural Guild with the Island Road Food Access Card. And I will say a big thank you also to the San Juan Islands Food Hub that continues each week actually to promote some of our programs, and their members continue to donate. So we've actually gotten weekly donations through the Food Hub. So, and then just in general, buy from our local farmers and growers at farmers markets, farm stands, and at the Food Hub. And when you're at the farmers market, if you see someone who has their sign up that they accept farmers market nutrition program, please thank those farmers. There's a lot that goes into having to apply to these programs. It's oftentimes not easy for a farmer in their midst of their busy growing season. So we're really appreciative of all the hard work that so many community partners and our farmers and growers, on top of their very busy schedules, commit to really helping us improve equitable food access for people who are low income in our community. And with that, I am going to stop my sharing, and I think we open it up to questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Kristen. So we did pretty good. We're a little bit behind, but we have about 20 minutes left. I want to do about 15 minutes of Q&A, and then just give each presenter a chance to give a brief closing thought or statement. So yeah, I have not seen any questions be typed in to the chat. If I missed it, please let me know, type it in again. And just to respect people's different ways that they might like to communicate, you can type it into the chat, or you can use the reactions button on the bottom. It has a hand. You can do a raise hand if you want. Yeah. Anybody awake? Okay, well, I'll pose a question. So we're doing a lot of planning, and obviously we haven't done the plan yet, but my question is, we all attend a lot of meetings about food. How do we go from talking about it to actually really scaling up our local food in the county?
I just had a thought a couple days ago, thinking about all the existing programs and efforts that are going on to do with local food. I think of them as kind of like the warp, and what we're looking to create is the weft. We're trying to weave all these together. And I really, really think it's going to take everybody. It's going to take our collective brilliance to figure out how do we best arrange these pieces to have the most benefits possible so that things are synergistic and reinforcing each other. My son is having a moment, if you can hear that. So there's that piece. And then I think also looking to other communities for models that work really well, and especially Indigenous land stewardship practices. And there's some really exciting things that it's like really hard to keep ourselves to observation mode in this assessment and not jump to like problem solving. But we were like making notes about all these amazing models and approaches for the plan. So I'm really looking forward to digging into those more.
Cool, thanks. When I see Henning's hand up, so I'm gonna go with that.
It will not surprise you that I asked this question. What you have proposed or what you presented here is a very strong effort to strengthen the supply side of our agricultural system, or our food system. What I'm always waiting for is how do we strengthen the demand side? Because as Lorna has told us many times, only a small fraction of what people put on their plates in our county comes from within the county. So how do we motivate local consumers to put their money where their mouth is, strengthen their own health, strengthen their own communities, improve the environment by eating locally and seasonally? I mean, you know that that's what I'm all about. And, you know, the Transition Lopez group was really behind that survey, the Eater survey, because we wanted to find out what are the impediments against people selecting local foods over cheap foods that come from somewhere else, foods that are nutritionally deficient and are ecologically disastrous in their production and distribution and value adding and the whole thing. To me, that is really the most important question in developing a strong local food system. And it is very closely linked with the whole question of how do we survive the climate disaster before us. We can be a model community that feeds itself. The islands have done this before. This is not new. We just have to return to it. But to achieve that, I think we not only have to build strong farmer community, but we have to build a strong consumer community that takes responsibility for what they put in their mouth. Eating is an agricultural act, as Wendell Berry always said. That message, I don't see that really fully represented in what I've seen tonight. So I hope that we can articulate that in the plan that you've promised.
I'd like to take a stab at that if I can. Thanks, Henning. I think that's the perfect question to ask. And yeah, I think part of the reason maybe that question didn't come through so much is because we're still in the process of doing the local food economic impact analysis. Part of that is quantifying the total demand and also the total current supply. And we actually realized in starting that study that there was more questions that we wanted to get at related to supply and demand than we realized at the outset. And so it's taking a little longer, but in the supply and demand analysis, we're wanting to quantify the total current demand for food, and then the total current supply of food in the county, how much of the current demand is being met by current supply, and even breaking it down on a monthly, breaking down the demand on a monthly scale. And then, because of course the seasonality, the demand is higher in the summer, we also have, that's where a lot of the peak supply is. So it does align in a certain way, but there's a part of the year where it's hard to grow, as much of our own food in the winter. But so this will be the first time really that we have this in-depth of an analysis of the supply and the demand, and then also going from what the current conditions are, being able to see how much of the gap in what we're not supplying out of the current demand, how much of that demand could be met locally, and then to start actually coming up with some strategy. But in regards to the needing to get consumers on board, I have maybe I guess a little bit of pushback on that, because from my perspective, what we're seeing in the data is actually that there's a lot of demand, and where we're lacking is in the supply. And so, in other words, like if there's more production, if we can provide more supply, there's already the demand to consume that supply to a certain extent. We're not producing everything that we could sell, but also I think what we're seeing, we still need to sort of do a little more analysis on this, is that at a certain point, price does become a factor, and in order to reach more of the community, there is an access component. Price is a big barrier for a lot of people, and the price of locally produced food, in one analysis that I did, which is certainly limited to just price comparisons that I've done, is I came up with a number of about 27%. That locally produced food is about 27% more expensive on average than that same item that's not produced locally. So we have it's with island wages not really being, they're not 27% higher than mainland wages, but food is more, the local food is more expensive. And so I think there's things to address there about access, as well as what you're talking about, raising awareness, and as we grow, as we increase the supply, also increasing the awareness and to increase the demand. So,
and I would chime in. I think that's one of the strengths when we really look at how do we foster and encourage, particularly more privately funded, food access programs. So it's really great that we have this market match program, and essentially what that is doing for clients, particularly who are on food stamps, is that they can go to a farmer's market, and essentially for $40, they can get an additional $40 in state funds, and then they get $20 in local funded private funds. So they actually, for $40, they can spend $100 on locally grown food. And that's pretty phenomenal when we think about, how do we ensure that people across all incomes are really able to access healthy, nutritious food. So I think that ethic and penning that you're presenting and proposing, is something that's really very valuable to think about, particularly for some of our lowest income, lowest wage earners. And many of them, I will say, are farmers. So that's the other thing to think about is everything that we're doing is really helping to keep those dollars being spent local, and oftentimes supporting some of the people who are really most in need.
Did you just say many of the recipients are farmers?
No, I said there are many of our low income wage earners that meet that 200% of federal poverty level criteria. Yeah, different.
So we're running kind of low on time, so in the last about 5 minutes for questions.
Okay.
I'd love to, and Henning, I'd love to, let's talk more offline because this is something we need to just talk more with you about. But are there any other questions that are wanting to come out? Oh, I think yeah, must have answered.
Sure, I'll ask a question.
Okay, good. Yeah, George.
Well, I'm glad to see all the names. I don't know many of the people on attending the meeting. I wonder if there's any county council people here. No. And so that's a question. You guys have done a lot of work. It's fabulous. Thanks for presenting. Represents a lot of knowledge and opportunities to move forward. But I think there's some county obstacles for farm worker housing, tax programs, other zoning things that seem pretty important to get the council paying attention to. And I know there was a push to sort of get on the comprehensive plan, you know, an ag priority for the comprehensive plan. I wonder where that is, if that was part of the scope of this meeting, and just general questions like, our county government needs to be more involved. Why isn't our county government more involved?
Sounds like a good faith question.
Yeah, and you know, I don't know if it's my internet or I really could you summarize George's question or?
Yeah.
Or is it just me?
I don't know if it was just you, George, but I couldn't really hear what the question was. You were kind of sounding rather robotic.
George, I think I know what you mean. Do you mind if I just summarize?
Please.
There are a lot of challenges. We've done a lot of great planning, but a lot of the barriers, there's a lot of barriers that stem from the county, farm worker housing, things like that on a policy level. And there's been some stuff, you know, efforts to get supportive language into the comp plan, but where does that stand in, you know, how do we get the county to do more?
Right. Yeah, I guess I can give a really quick, in a nutshell, where we're at in the comprehensive plan update process, which is going on forever. But, you know, land use is, that section is a huge section as far as, you know, its relation to agricultural land. And at this point, the ARC put forward kind of a new section that was all about agriculture for the land use section. And that was mostly adopted and is in the current draft that will be, like, there's going to be kind of community outreach in the whole process, looking at the kind of final draft. So that's kind of the next step. And we were really happy that there was a lot of really positive responsiveness from the Planning Commission with what we put forward. And it has not been, you know, fully ratified yet by the county council. But so looking at that and writing letters of support, or, you know, or comments if you have different ideas. There's kind of a round coming, it's going to be this fall. So keep an eye out for that comprehensive plan public outreach opportunities, because they are coming. And as far as county council, I actually gave a very similar presentation to what I did today, a little bit expanded, to county council last week. So trying to really, so they heard the bulk of what I said today with some more. And Christine Minnie is the ARC kind of, I guess, liaison, or so she's been, since she stepped up, she's been attending the ARC meetings, and seems like she's been, there with ears open. So I guess that's my little just update as far as where we're at, ARC kind of county right
Can
now. And
you-
I don't know if anyone else
Can you,
has
as a
anything
quick-
to add.
As a quick follow-up, can you just really quickly, in less than 1 minute, say, like, the comp plan is sort of aspirational? How, people don't have a lot of, I don't think,
Right, the
understanding
comprehensive
of like,
plan.
what does it do? So how do
What's
you,
it
what
do?
happens after?
Well, what it does is then after that, it then county code, which is the, the rules, the laws, they get tweaked to reflect what is put forward in the comprehensive plan. So when the new comprehensive plan is ratified, I'm not sure if that's the right word, then it is what is looked to when rule changes happen. So it's kind of, it itself doesn't change the code, but it guides code changes going forward. So it's an ongoing slog is really what it is. And we're like, come on, let's get done with the comp plan. So then we can get into the nitty gritty and make some of these changes that are going to, change the code and change, because that's really what affects, what you can do and what you can't do.
Yeah,
So
that's where like the
hopefully
real
that's
change
helpful.
happens. So in a way, it
Yeah.
feels like the real work's about to start once we get past the comp plan. So we have just a few minutes. So I want to just say thank you to everybody for coming. And there's going to be a lot more engagement with the food system plan and the community food assessment. So this is our first sort of like reveal of just the work we've been doing for the last 18 months. So you can expect more engagement. And yeah, thanks again to Kate, and thanks to all of the food system team, because it's one of the highlights of my life, definitely getting to work with all of you guys. And it's just so rewarding. And I think one of the most important things that I'm involved in. And the best is yet to come. So, so 30 seconds closing statement from each of the four presenters. Why don't we go in the same order that we presented in? Faith, Caitlin, Steph, and Kristen.
Thanks, everyone. For, from everyone growing the food. And, it's like, these are like, this, like how we take care of the land inside the, like, legal structure that we live in, it's like how we do, it's like, it's really hard to figure out how to care for the land, how to have people that want to grow food have access to the land, and how to like nourish ourselves, and in this crazy time of, just big change. So this is a big time right now with climate change, with development pressures, with like, it's like we all need to just like step forward and do everything that we can do. And sometimes it's hard to know, it's like, what's the best thing? So if anyone has ideas that they're like, here's an idea, this is the way that, can the county do this? Please, like, reach out, and I'll put my email and my phone number in the chat. So please do reach out, and thank you.
I will definitely echo that sentiment and repeat myself too, just to say, I really, really believe it will take everyone and it will take our collective brilliance. So when Faith is saying reach out, we are very enthusiastic and keen to hear from you. And yeah, it's, you know, having all your eyes on the ground and kind of like this convergence of observations that can feed into strategic planning that will really help to move the dial. That's what we're looking to do. So it really does require everyone, and we want to hear your input. So I'll pop my stuff in the chat again. And yeah, just thank you so much for taking the time to be here.
Yeah, thank you so much for listening to all we had to say. And it's really complicated with all these programs and what we want to do, and where is the best leverage points that we can have the most change. I hear you, Henning, about because when I first started, I'm like, yeah, let's just advertise more and get the word out, and we'll get more buyers. But now that I'm helping with the food hub, I'm like, it's transportation issues, it's labor issues, it's so complicated. So we really have to look at our resources and where can we have the most leverage. And sometimes that also might be, it might not be done here. We might have to partner with some off-island stuff, especially with processing, because you know, hopefully we could get some freezer stuff going or some kind of canning things going. But those are expensive to operate, and can we make it sustainable? So very hard questions to ask. But thank you.
And I will just echo my gratitude as well. If anything, this past year and a half has shown us is how grateful I am to live in this community where we really all care about one another. And we have such a spirit of island ingenuity. So I'm just grateful. And it, of course, very complex problems that we're posing, but it is really nice to be surrounded by passionate people that care and want to take care of each other and the land that we live on. And so, yeah, thank you all for being here.
Thanks, everybody. I just want to add one final thought, is that one of the things that is really apparent in this work is that we're all already doing it. Like, it's not like we're just going to start after we do the plan, but like there's a lot of amazing stuff happening, and there's just some big barriers that need to be, you know, broken down to really, I think, to really accelerate the change. But I just think that we really can do it. Like, we have a lot of building blocks in place, and so that's, I think, what we're doing, not trying to start, but just kind of accelerate the change so we can have really more impact. So yeah, Micah says, you know, if anybody can do it, we can do it here. So I think, yeah, we're creating a model, and it's going to take all of us. So with that, we're going to end. I'm going to stop the recording, and then we can leave. Thanks, everybody.